You think some people are permanent. Not because they promise it. Not because they demand it. You just assume it, like the furniture in your living room, like the air in your lungs. You don't notice it until it's gone. You don't thank it. You don't protect it. You just expect it to always be there. That's how I saw Lena. My wife. Quiet. Loyal. Patient in a way that made her invisible most of the time. She woke up before me. Slept long after I had collapsed on the bed. And in between, she filled the space with care I never acknowledged. When I came home tired, the food was ready. When I was angry, she stayed calm. When I ignored her, she waited. And I mistook waiting for weakness. I didn't see strength in silence. I didn't see devotion in patience. I saw convenience. I saw someone I could take for granted. I had grown arrogant over the years. Confident. Powerful. I believed the world bent around me, and I thought Lena would too. And then Iris came back into my life. My first love. She reminded me of who I had been before responsibilities, before routine, before real life demanded compromise. She laughed like it mattered. She touched my arm as if to remind me I was still alive. And I told myself nothing would happen. I told myself I could keep both worlds separate. Love two women in two different ways. Protect what I had without giving it away. It started small. Secret calls. Laughter I hid from Lena. Texts I deleted like they were trash, but not before reading every single word. I convinced myself it wasn't cheating if it wasn't physical. But Lena noticed. Of course, she noticed. Not in a dramatic way. Not in confrontation. But in the quiet moments when I wasn't looking. She noticed the way I laughed differently. The way my attention drifted. And I didn't want to see it. I didn't want to feel it. I couldn't bear the thought of disappointment or silent questions that would pierce through my arrogance. One evening, she asked softly, "Are you still happy with me?" I laughed. Nervously. Awkwardly. Looking anywhere but at her. "Don't start," I said. That was the first crack. I didn't feel it yet, but it had begun. Her silence that night spoke louder than any argument ever could. It was as if all the love she had quietly poured into our life had suddenly demanded acknowledgement, and I ignored it. Weeks passed. I kept pretending nothing was wrong. I told my mother I was careful, that I was doing nothing wrong. She smiled and nodded, oblivious to the storm growing inside me. But I felt it. Something was wrong. And I could feel it in the pit of my stomach, that cold sense of something shifting beneath my feet. And then the moment came. The moment I will never forget. She packed one small bag. Just a single bag. No yelling. No pleading. No tears. She didn't argue. She didn't beg. She didn't need to. She left. And in that moment, I felt relief. Freedom. I thought I had won. But here's the cruel part. Winning didn't feel like winning. It felt like the quiet before a storm you never see coming. The absence of someone who loved you unconditionally is louder than any fight, louder than any scream. And I didn't know then. What I mistook for liberation was the first echo of my own emptiness. I thought she would never leave. I was wrong. It didn't come with shouting. It didn't come with glass breaking or doors slamming. The confrontation didn't arrive like a storm. It came like a quiet warning, like the air before lightning strikes. It came with silence. Lena waited. She waited until I hung up that call with Iris. She had heard everything. The way I laughed, the tone of my voice, the warmth I gave someone else while standing in my own home. She didn't ask for explanations. She didn't plead. She simply asked me to choose. Not between two women. Not even between love and lust. She asked me to choose between honesty and lies. Between commitment and arrogance. Between the life we built and the selfish escape I had decided I deserved. And I laughed. I laughed calmly, like I had all the time in the world, like she was overreacting. "You're overreacting," I said. "You're safe. I'm still here." She nodded. Not angrily. Not bitterly. Not with tears. She nodded. Like she understood something I couldn't yet see about myself. Then she walked out. No drama. No spectacle. Just dignity. And a silence louder than any fight I had ever had. I thought I had won. I signed the divorce papers 2 weeks later without reading them. My mother nodded approvingly, telling me I was doing the right thing. Ira smiled, celebrated, reminded me daily that life could be bright, loud, exciting. I believed I had escaped responsibility. I believed I had control. But the house felt wrong. It didn't feel empty in the way you imagine an empty room to feel. It felt heavy, hollow, like absence had weight, like every corner echoed something I had ignored for years. At first, I didn't notice. I filled the space with noise. Music, friends, laughter, distractions. But even in the middle of a crowd, the emptiness followed me. Late at night, when the lights were dim and the city outside quiet, I could hear it. The absence of someone who had loved without demand, who had been patient when I was careless, who had waited without complaint. That silence wasn't peaceful, it was accusing. And slowly, the consequences began to show themselves. Friends who had quietly admired Lena now avoided me. Colleagues who once respected me started questioning my decisions. Little failures crept in, missed deadlines, forgotten meetings, conversations I stumbled through. They seemed insignificant at first, like small cracks in a wall. But cracks become fractures, and fractures become collapse. Iris tried to fill the space Lena had left. She laughed louder. She touched me more deliberately. She demanded attention in ways I thought I craved. I convinced myself that control, excitement, and constant validation could replace love. I convinced myself that a loud presence could erase the quiet, steady devotion I had thrown away. But it didn't. No matter how much I leaned into her, no matter how much I told myself I was happy, something vital was missing. The foundation Lena had built was gone, and nothing I grabbed could replace it. I didn't understand it yet. I told myself I was free. I told myself I had made the right choice. I told myself I was alive in a way I hadn't been before. But what I called life was hollow. Excitement isn't the same as peace. Control isn't the same as love. And in every loud laugh, every hidden smile from Iris, I felt the echo of Lena's absence, subtle, insistent, impossible to ignore. The relief I had felt when she walked out, that rush of freedom I mistook for triumph, was slowly becoming a shadow that followed me everywhere. It whispered in the quiet hours, in the empty corners of the house. It reminded me that absence isn't neutral. It carries a weight I didn't earn, didn't respect, didn't anticipate. And yet I pretended. I pretended that life could be rewritten. I pretended that excitement and novelty could replace steadiness and devotion. I pretended that the mistakes I had made didn't have consequences beyond what I could see. But silence has a memory, and absence has a voice. And eventually, both will catch up to you. I thought I had chosen freedom. I thought I had escaped accountability. I thought I had won. But the truth is that the night I chose wrong didn't just take her away from me. It started taking pieces of me I didn't even know I had left behind. It began quietly, invisibly, like the first drop of rain before a storm I refused to see coming. And that storm doesn't forgive. Life with Iris began like a dream. Or at least, that's what I told myself. I told myself I had upgraded my life, that Lena was a memory, a chapter closed neatly on a page I no longer needed. For a while, it felt that way. Excitement filled the gaps I didn't even know existed. The novelty, the laughter, the attention, it was intoxicating. I convinced myself I was happy. I told myself I was free. But dreams built on sand never last. Iris demanded everything. Not just time, not just loyalty, but constant reassurance, constant praise, constant validation. Everything I had once taken for granted in Lena, I now had to fight for, or lose to petty jealousy. She measured herself against Lena in ways I hadn't anticipated, comparing her warmth to Lena's calm, her presence to Lena's patience. And I had nothing to give her that could ever match what I had taken for granted. I didn't notice the cracks at first. I was too busy basking in the illusion that my choice was worth it, that I had traded wisely. But the world around me began to change. Friends who had quietly admired Lena started disappearing from my life. They couldn't reconcile my arrogance with her absence. Their loyalty quietly slipped away. Work, once effortless, now felt like walking through mud. Every decision backfired. Every choice seemed heavier than the last. The universe, it seemed, was making me understand the weight of what I had thrown away. The life I thought I had won with excitement and control began to collapse in ways I didn't foresee. And then, One day, years later, I saw her again. Lena. Standing in a hospital hallway, calm, confident, respected. She moved with a quiet authority that demanded attention without demanding it. People listened to her. They smiled at her. They respected her in ways I had never given her the space to achieve when we were together. She smiled at patients and staff alike, radiating a kind of peace I had thought I understood but never really did. I felt invisible beside her. For the first time in my life, I saw the magnitude of what I had lost. It wasn't her face, or her laugh, or the way she waited for me. It was the life she had created for herself, a life I had never allowed her the freedom to build with me. And then it hit me. I had used Iris to fill a void only Lena could have ever filled. Every argument, every jealousy, every loud laugh and whispered compliment. I was looking for a substitute, a replacement, a shadow to stand where I had once ignored light. Iris noticed my reaction. Her eyes narrowed. Jealousy flared like fire in a quiet room. She demanded more, controlled more, questioned more. I realized then that the excitement I thought I craved wasn't freedom at all. It was a cage of my own making. And Iris, unwillingly, became both the lock and the key. I tried to reach Lena. Not for reconciliation. Not for revenge. Not even for love. I wanted relief. Relief from the guilt that had settled like a stone in my chest. Relief from the constant, gnawing ache of knowing I had ruined something that could never be replaced. She replied once, "I forgave you for myself, not for us." Those words hit harder than anger ever could. Not because they were cruel, but because they were final. Because they contained everything I had taken for granted. Because they reminded me that forgiveness doesn't erase consequences. That love, once given, is not a promise you can break without paying. In that moment, I understood something essential. You can chase excitement, chase novelty, chase control, and think it will fill the void. But it doesn't. No one else can give you what you destroyed by neglecting the one who loved you quietly, steadily, without conditions. No one else can replace the patience, the understanding, the space someone gives when they choose to stay even when you are blind to their worth. I watched Lena move through the hallway, serene and unshaken, and I saw the contrast between her world and mine. She was thriving. I was surviving. And the difference wasn't luck or talent or fate. It was choice. The choice I had made to pursue what felt thrilling in the moment rather than what was true, lasting, and essential. Iris couldn't fix it. Nothing could. I had traded permanence for distraction, depth for spectacle, stability for chaos. And I was learning, slowly, painfully, that winning in the moment could mean losing everything in the long run. I tried to tell myself I had learned my lesson. I tried to believe I had gained something valuable in the trade. But some losses don't teach lessons, they leave scars. Scars that appear in quiet moments, in empty rooms, in conversations that feel like echoes of what could have been. And Lena. Lena moved on with grace I could never hope to replicate. She forgave herself, not me. She reclaimed her life, while I chased shadows. That day, in the hospital hallway, I understood the cruelest truth of all. Love is not about who can scream the loudest or demand the most attention. It is about who can stay, quietly, with patience, with understanding, with a commitment that doesn't need proving. And when you abandon that, there is no replacing it. No second chances. No shortcuts. Winning love doesn't matter if, in the process, you lose yourself, and everything that truly matters, along the way. My downfall didn't come with a warning. It didn't arrive with a scream or a crash. It came quietly, slowly, subtly, like the erosion of a cliff no one notices until the ground beneath them gives way. Business deals that once came effortlessly began to fail. One by one, decisions I had made with confidence backfired. Opportunities slipped through my fingers like water I couldn't hold. Friends who had once admired or envied me, stopped answering calls, avoided texts, skipped dinners. Their loyalty wasn't gone because of them. It was gone because of me. Even Iris, the woman I had leaned on to fill the space Lena left, betrayed me. Not violently, not dramatically, but emotionally, financially. Quiet betrayals that cut deeper than any confrontation ever could. And my mother who had always stood by me blindly, suddenly became a stranger. She avoided taking sides. She said nothing, and in that silence, I felt more isolated than I ever had. I had everything and nothing at the same time. A life that looked successful on the outside, but inside, hollow. Rooms filled with noise, but echoing with absence. Every laugh, every moment of fleeting excitement with Iris, felt like a reminder that I had traded substance for spectacle. I spent nights replaying the past. Not the mistakes I had made with Iris, not the divorce papers, not the judgments of friends and colleagues, but Lena. I remembered her cooking alone, standing by the stove in quiet patience while I came home tired and oblivious. I remembered how she waited without complaint when I ignored her. I remembered the way she forgave silently, without asking, without threatening, without showing the resentment she must have felt. And I saw it. Everything I had missed. Everything I had dismissed as ordinary, simple, taken for granted. And I realized my pride had blinded me. Pride and arrogance, disguised as confidence, had stolen the one thing I could never regain. One night, I sat alone. No music. No distractions. No illusions. Just me and the man I had become. I wasn't broken physically. I wasn't bruised or battered. But my spirit felt shattered. I had built a life that looked complete, yet at the core, I had nothing of real value. Loyalty. Patience. Quiet devotion. The things I had mocked, ignored, and abandoned. They were worth more than all the power, attention, and excitement I had chased. And I realized then that I had been chasing the wrong things my entire life. I tried to contact Lena. Not for love. Not for reconciliation. Not for revenge. I wanted absolution. A word, a glance, a sign that the guilt I carried could be lessened. She refused. Calmly. Without anger. Without drama. I forgave you for myself, not for us, she said once, and it struck deeper than any punishment I could have imagined. I had to face it alone. Some damage cannot be undone. Some losses are permanent. No apology. No plea. No tearful explanation can reverse what you have broken when you fail to see it in time. And slowly, slowly, I began to rebuild. Not with the arrogance that had defined me. Not with illusions that control or excitement can replace love. Not with the belief that I am owed forgiveness. I began with small things. Quiet things. Facing the truth of my mistakes without excuses. Listening instead of speaking. Watching instead of assuming. Acknowledging loyalty when it is present. Protecting patience when it shows itself. Learning the weight of presence, and how absence can never truly be filled by noise. The rebuilding wasn't easy. It wasn't dramatic or flashy. It was invisible work. Late nights spent reflecting. Early mornings spent planning honestly. Mistakes I corrected, silently, without attention. Conversations I had honestly, without manipulation. And little by little, the world responded. The chaos began to fade. The silence stopped being accusatory and began to be instructive. I began to understand that karma doesn't speak. It doesn't announce itself with warnings. It doesn't punish publicly. It just acts. And when you ignore it, it unfolds naturally, inevitably, silently. I realized the truth. You cannot outrun the consequences of your arrogance. You cannot replace what is lost with distractions or noise. And forgiveness, while powerful, is not a gift you receive automatically. It is a gift given on terms you may not meet. And Lena, she had met her own terms. She had forgiven herself. She had reclaimed her life. She had moved forward while I was forced to confront every fragment of my pride and recklessness. I had learned, painfully, that rebuilding takes time. It takes honesty. It takes humility. It takes staring at the emptiness you created and deciding to fill it with truth instead of illusion. And slowly, day by day, I began to do that. Not perfectly. Not without struggle. But steadily. Because some lessons, the hardest ones, are the ones you cannot outsource. You cannot cheat your way through them. You cannot hide from them with distractions or charm or temporary victories. You have to face the reflection of the man you became and decide, do I continue the path of destruction, or do I rebuild? I chose to rebuild. Quietly. Without applause. Without expectation. Because the only redemption that matters is the one you earn in the silence of your own conscience. And slowly, I began to understand that karma never speaks. It simply unfolds, and the only choice you ever have is how to respond when it does. I rebuilt my life quietly. Not with fanfare. Not with entitlement. not with anyone watching. I rebuilt it alone, facing the man I had become, the arrogance, the pride, the blind pursuit of excitement over substance. I faced the choices that had led me to emptiness and the echoes of absence that no laughter, no new love, could ever fill. Therapy helped, not instantly, not magically, but slowly. It forced me to confront myself honestly, to recognize patterns I had justified for years, to acknowledge my mistakes without excuse, to see the cost of my actions not just in lost opportunities, but in lost people. Friends returned cautiously. Not all of them. Some never did. But enough to remind me that the world could still contain loyalty and trust, even if I had once ignored it. I focused on work, on discipline, on becoming a man capable of understanding love in ways I never had before. Not to impress anyone. Not to repair the past. But to finally respect it. Sometimes, I see Lena from afar. She is happy. Complete. Untouchable in a way that demands no recognition from me. She doesn't need me. She never needed me in the way I thought I had deserved. And I don't approach her. I don't apologize. I don't beg. Because some things are not for reclaiming. Some truths cannot be reversed. Some lessons come too late. Pain arrives after choices are made, after doors are closed, after silence has spoken the loudest. And yet even late lessons change you. They carve channels in your conscience where arrogance once ruled. They teach you humility, even if it tastes bitter at first. They show you that loss is permanent, but understanding it can create a kind of redemption. Losing Lena defined my fate. It set the tone for years of struggle, for nights spent questioning, for days spent learning what I had ignored while I chased fleeting thrill. But it also shaped my conscience. It showed me that strength is not in taking what you want. Strength is in recognizing what you had, what you lost, and learning to live with its absence without bitterness, without entitlement, without trying to reclaim what was never yours to keep once it walked away. I am no longer the man who thought waiting meant weakness. I am no longer the man who believed love could be measured in excitement or attention or immediate gratification. I am a man who understands the weight of presence, the depth of patience, the irreplaceable value of someone who stands silently and faithfully beside you. I see her sometimes, Lena, and I see the life I failed to nurture. But I also see myself, the man I became, slowly, painfully, without shortcuts. The man who finally understands consequences, not as punishment, but as teachers that cannot be ignored. And that knowledge, awful, humbling, impossible to forget, is the only thing I can carry forward. It is heavy, yes. It is sharp, like a reminder of every choice made in arrogance. But it is also liberating. Because at last, I know that love is not something you take. It is something you see, something you protect, something you honor while you have it. And when it is gone, the only power left is the understanding you gain from having lost it. I rebuilt. I survived. I learned. I walk through life now without illusions of control over others. I see the value in quiet, in steady devotion, in the loyalty I once mistook for weakness. I carry the memory of her presence not with resentment, but with reverence for what I once failed to appreciate. I am no longer entitled. I am no longer blind. I am no longer the man who laughed when asked to choose. I am the man who understands, finally, that some people are irreplaceable, that some losses never truly fade, and that knowing this, carrying it quietly, is the only strength left to those who have learned the hardest lessons too late. So I move forward. Not to win. Not to reclaim. Not to prove anything. But to live with understanding. To live with humility. To live as someone who knows the cost of arrogance, the weight of absence, and the truth that some love, once lost, shapes the rest of your life. And in that knowledge, I find the closest thing to peace I can ever hold.